You're okay, ma'am. You're safe now. Can you look at me?
They're still out there.
We'll take care of it. Right now, we just need to get you warm.
Dispatch, victim located. We're heading back to the vehicle.
Easy does it. Lean on me.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Creme de la Cringe. And yep, we're back with another crazy story.
Hi, everyone. I know. I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, this one is this one's a little more modern that we usually deal with. We usually deal with a lot of cases back in the 1800s, sometimes 1700s, but this one was mid 1970s. And I did find a ton of this information in two newspapers. Okay, I want to give a shout out to the Chattanoogan and the Times Free Press for they had amazing series of articles on this case. So yeah, okay. So this happened in Noble, Georgia. Noble, Georgia. Like we've all heard of that, right?
I'm like, it's kind of like, the small little podunk Idaho towns that you don't hear.
Right. It's in Northwest Georgia, tiny little town. Since the mid 1970s, the Tri-State Crematorium had provided cremation services for funeral homes in Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. So a lot of funeral homes don't have a crematory. So they contract.
So I did not actually know that until dealing with so much stuff, especially in the recent time frame, that they don't.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny, squirrel moment, but one of my friends in Childress, Texas, he would use his pickup truck to drive up to Amarillo. It's 2 hours each way. And they put a body in the bed of his truck in like a box, and then he'd drive it back. So
no way. That's
pretty loosey-goosey there in Texas.
Can you imagine getting pulled over?
Can you imagine getting in a wreck? And this thing goes flying out of the bed of your truck.
No, that would be so bad.
One time he's like, "Do you want to go with me?" And I went, "Not really. No, I'll see you when you get back." So this Tri-State Crematorium was originally founded by a guy named Tommy Marsh, and he was a really respected businessman. And he eventually turned the operation of the business over to his son, Ray Brent Marsh, who goes by Brent. Okay, it was in the mid 1990s, so pretty recent as recent goes. Yeah. So Brent was in his third year of college at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, when his father's health issues became pretty severe, too severe for him to keep running the business. So with limited options available, Brent left college, which was really sad. He left college. It was sad for him and his future because he was a premier athlete. He was a starter in the varsity football team. He was lettering in track. He was on his way to a UTC football team, and he appeared to have everything going for him when his dad's health declined and he walked away from college to help.
Oh, that sucks.
It is so sad. It's like really there was anybody else that you could have. And when I researched kind of the family, I think Brent was like the first kid to make it to college. It wasn't like they were a real well-to-do family. So that was even more.
Oh, that's even worse.
So how this crematorium worked was there all these surrounding states within proximity to this crematorium. They would transport their bodies to the funeral home for cremation. And they would get the ashes back, like in an urn or whatever urn, and that would be transported back to the proper funeral home in whatever state, and then the family would take it from there. So none of them really knew what was going on when Brent, now I've already forgotten his name, right? Brent, yeah. When Brent took over the business, okay, Ray Brent Jr. So when Brent took over the business from his dad, it wasn't well known. Nobody knew. They just Brent was there. He was receiving bodies. He was doing the crematorium. He was packaging ashes and sending them back. And I mean, as far as funeral homes go, it wasn't known. Okay. So at some point in the late 90s, he was receiving bodies, but not telling anybody he wasn't doing cremations. So he was giving families concrete dust instead of cremains. And that seems to be a pretty common theme because I think, wasn't our local guy doing that?
I think so.
So allegedly, because he hasn't got a trial yet. And there's a whole bunch of other cases. We're going to get involved with some more funeral homes as we go along. And they do the same thing because it looks so similar. Yeah. So in October 2000, a propane delivery man named Cook, he's, tooling down some, and if you've ever been in Georgia, it's just like Northern California. It's red clay. The roads
Oh, really?
are clay, and they're slimy when they're wet, and it's clay, and you can't get a shovel through them. You cannot dig a hole in Northern California, and you can't do it. Yeah, it's bad. So he's tooling down the road in his propane truck, and he's going out to some local farms to do some, to top off their tanks. When he thinks he's looking in the woods and he's like, man, those are bodies. Like, what's going on? Those are bodies. And so he goes over to the Walker County Sheriff's Office and he decides he files a complaint. But the sheriff, being the sheriff in a southern place, and this is no big deal. He's like, this is not a criminal issue. This is a regulatory issue. So I'm going to leave it up to the state regulators to deal with it. So, the propane guy, thinking something was surely going to be done because he's found bodies, he didn't think about it again until the following year when he's out on his route to top off these big farm tanks. And he's like, what in the hell? There's bodies out here in the woods. Like, what's going on? And he's like, he gets out of his truck and he starts walking around, and there's this backhoe like 20 feet from the road. And next to the backhoe, out in the open, was a body in a severe state of decomp. Yeah, this poor delivery guy.
I bet he was scarred for life.
Yeah. Then he noticed a blue tarp that was covering a mound, and he assumed that under the tarp in the mound was additional bodies. And he's like, I'm out. That's it. I'm done. And he got the heck out of there because it's in the woods in Georgia. And
I'm like, I've never really been anywhere. I've never been outside of the beautiful state we live in.
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Northwest Georgia. Well, Georgia's where they filmed the movie Deliverance.
Okay.
So if you've ever seen the movie and how thick the hardwood forests are around the river they were going down in the community.
Okay.
Yeah, It's a whole movie, but most of us have at least seen bits and snips of it, right?
Yeah.
It is a hardwood forest, thick. Like when you get, because I've lived all over the South, when you get into those trees, you can't really see through them. It's dense. So that he even saw the bodies, that's amazing.
Yeah.
He smelled it more than saw it at first, thinking, what's going on?
And that's got to be something because driving a propane truck, like, it's got to stink.
Yeah, right. It smells like propane. I've
yeah.
Wet. So Cook goes home, he's like driving his little propane truck, and he goes home and he's like, tells his aunt, her name's Faye Deal, and she was an information management assistant for the FBI in Rossville, Georgia. And he goes, Aunt, what's her name here? Aunt Faye, he goes, Aunt Faye, I saw the strangest thing out here. You're not going to believe this, but last year I reported this, and I saw more bodies this year, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it. So she's like, well,
So here's my thought on this case. So if he reported it a year before, that means they just had to be adding more. Because I'm like, okay, they would have been decomposed by.
Think of the body farm as in Tennessee. The reason why it's in Tennessee is because it's so hot and so humid, and they study decomp. Well, Georgia's is bad, if not worse than Tennessee. It's humid out there. I'm like, I remember living back there, and it would be 100 degrees humidity, like water running down the inside of your walls in your house, and you're just wringing wet.
Nope.
Yeah, it would be 98 degrees, 101 degrees.
I will never complain about the heat ever again.
So bad. So Aunt Faye's like, this sounds really wrong to me. So she spoke with an FBI investigator at her office named Frank Garcia. And she began to tell him about all of her nephew's observations. And he went, this doesn't seem right. I'm like, no, sheriff is going, So old Frank, seemed to think that, or Aunt Faye seemed to think that Frank Garcia, the investigator, really wasn't buying the story she was telling him. So that kind of prompted her to take a different approach. And so she drove out to the property with the dog, and she brought a human bone back to the office, like a femur bone, and said, there you go. There's the bone. There's proof.
I mean, hey, girl, go get her.
Yeah. So Garcia then says, wow, this sounds like a case. So he promised her, look, I'm going to handle this. Don't worry about it. So the inquiry turned out, he decides to make a call, and he called Major Hill Morrison of the Walker County Sheriff's Department. And Morrison sent an officer out, Mark Stanfield, out to the Marsh residence. So this is the residence of the crematory, right? Because it's all on the property. They have a big, huge chunk of property where they have a couple of houses, really, some trailers, and then they have the crematory, the office, and all that kind of stuff. When you look this up online, it's just, you just get the willies. You just get the willies.
Really? I'm like, now I gotta look this up because I'm weird like that.
So the officer is greeted by Brent Marsh's mother, Clara, and they told her there was a complaint about bones being found on the crematory property, and she and her husband told the officer there was no way this is possible. Now, remember that her husband is very, very ill, and she had nothing to do really with the crematory service. She may have done the books at one time, but she doesn't. They're older.
Yeah.
And they don't go out there. They assume their son's taking care of the business. So Noble, Georgia.
I was just like,
okay. So months pass. So now it's like a year and a half after the propane dude saw the remains. It's on Valentine's Day, 2002. The FBI agent, he's like, you know what? I haven't heard anything. This is ridiculous. Or no, I'm sorry, Aunt Faye. She's like, I haven't heard anything. This is ridiculous. I am contacting the criminal investigation unit with the EPA because FBI's not doing anything. Sheriff's not doing anything. Like, nobody's doing
which
anything.
Is so weird.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So she leaves a message with this guy, this agent, Robin Hedden, on his answering machine, going into quite a lengthy story, the background of her nephew's findings on the property. And when Hedden listens to the message, he goes, what? Oh, heck no. So he went out there, like immediately he starts investigating. So on February 15th, the next day, Hedden left his Atlanta office for Noble and with another EPA investigator. And his name was Larry Anderson. As their agency, so the EPA is really, really interesting because environmental crimes don't need a warrant. It's
really,
it's not like criminal crimes where they need a warrant to enter your property and do a search. Environmental crimes, if it's an EPA investigator, they can enter in their jurisdiction, which this was, without a warrant. They don't have to notify any law enforcement agencies of their upcoming visit or anything. They just show up and start looking. Okay. It's because of the permit issue. So it's kind of like when I was an inspector in California and Texas, I could show up unannounced, walk into a facility, and look at it from head to toe. Look at the record, everything.
And that's smart.
So they went, okay, knock, knock, knock. Here we are. And they start looking. When they arrive and open the door to the first building on the property, they were shocked. They were absolutely shocked. There were bodies piled up around the room, fluids all around. Several bodies were dressed in hospital gowns. Some still had their hospital IDs on, and that were secured either around their wrists or their ankles. You know, like if they go to the morgue, they have an ankle thing. So
Yeah.
they're like, oh my God. Behind every door, they said behind every door, they were greeted with scenes that were more and more horrifying. Finally, they called the Walker County Sheriff's Office and said, get your butt down here. This is a real crime. This is a real scene. Like, you guys wouldn't do anything about this for years now. So one of the agents, the EPA agents, said it was something like, quote, out of a Stephen King novel. That's how bad it was.
Okay, that says a lot.
Says a lot. As more authorities arrived at Tri-State, more horrors are revealed. So the Times Free Press reported that the decomposing body of a man in a suit was discovered in a wooden box, the skeleton of a baby at his feet. Outside on the grounds of the crematorium was a dilapidated hearse that held badly decomposed body of a man in a casket. Some bodies appear to have been dragged across floors of various buildings on the property and left to decay. According to the Chattanooga newspaper, on February 19, 2002, Dr. Chris Sperry, which was Georgia's chief medical examiner, told the media that at that point it had 149 bodies discovered at that point.
And that's just in the buildings, right? Oh my
God. They discovered about a half a dozen coffins only for all those bodies. There was 6 coffins, each containing human remains. The coffins appear to have been buried in the ground at one point, but then unearthed. They don't know why. Probably that's why the backhoe was out there, because he was digging stuff up. I don't know what was going on. Officials informed the public that a mobile morgue unit, kind of like what happened here in Pocatello, was brought in to the scene to help with, because they were constantly, every time they went out another 10 feet, they discovered another body. And they had to have these mobile cold storage morgue units brought in, like you would do for like a mass casualty event. A team of nearly 24 experts consisting of trained pathologists, doctors, nurses, and other professionals were dispatched with the mobile morgue unit. The same team had been on site to help identify the victims of the World Trade Center in 2001. So they're very very, very well trained. Inside a storage building were a set of vaults that were opened. After entering these vaults, investigators discovered that they contained human remains in various state of decomp. The largest vault contained an additional 40 bodies. The smaller ones were crammed with about 20 or so apiece. I know.
Like, my brain can't even wrap around all that.
I know. I'm like, what?
Like, you owned a crematorium.
Right. It was obvious that Marsh was not cremating any of the bodies that had been coming in for the last few years. And there were certainly people who had been given their relatives cremains while Tri-State was in business. But some of those, obviously, a lot of it was concrete, the mix.
Yeah.
So investigators started reaching out to the local funeral homes who had known to do business with Tri-State and said, we need a list of all of the people who you have sent their relatives' cremains to Tri-State. And then they started telling them why. And of course, the funeral directors are freaking out because they get urns back and hand them back to the family with the paperwork, thinking everything is hunky-dory. Yeah. So let's see, nearly 80 families came forward, which wasn't nearly enough for all of the cremains. But I'm betting that a lot of people don't necessarily, like me, I don't have family. You know what I'm saying? So it's like some people just pass away and the hospital ships their bodies to the home, and if the state is going to cover the expenses, they go have the person cremated, and that's that. So 80 families came forward and they brought in the urns. Only seven urns contained substances that were not of human origin. One of them appeared to be potting soil. Once they opened it up, the site started. So then they had to do a grid on the property. They had to lay out tape and stakes in a grid fashion and start investigating. Yeah. And so eventually Ray Brent, the son, he was jailed on 5 counts of theft by deception. Federal and local investigators searched throughout March. The last body they found was on March 27th, and they declared the search at that point over because they had gone through the grid, and at the last cell, they figured they had searched everything. They reached a count of 339 bodies. They revised that to 334 once they figured out what went to whom. It was probably really hard for them to figure out. I mean,
yeah.
What makes it really bizarre to simply make the bodies and to hide them on his property because the crematorium was operational. It wasn't like
so wait, the crematorium was operating.
Yeah, it was operational. It didn't break down. So they don't know why. He never gave an explanation for his actions. He couldn't tell anybody why he just stopped and started stacking up bodies. His attorneys asked for psychological testing, and rightfully so. And it indicated that he was a victim of mercury toxicity for cremating bodies with mercury dental amalgam. So people who used to have fillings and they were mercury, he's handling the cremains probably without gloves and brushing them into a box. Mercury poisoning. Remember the Mad Hatter's disease?
Mm-hmm.
That was, so mercury in the felt, when they were handling the felt and all that from making hats way back. Right.
Yeah.
We're going crazy because of the mercury toxicity, and he started losing it. So his defense attorney said that there was a faulty ventilation system as well. So as he's cremating the bodies, instead of venting the smoke out properly, it was in the buildings and they were inhaling it, and it had mercury in the it was mercury vapors that they're inhaling. In 1995, so remember this was in the 2000s. In 95, it was alleged that the crematorium was not operating as a legal business. And there were a lot of complaints on this business over a period of years. And the coroner, Bill McGill, had actually filed a complaint against Tri-State with the examining board for funeral homes. And the case was dismissed before its scheduled hearing date in 1996. And a 27-year veteran of the coroner's office was insistent that Tri-State was in the wrong. But he's like, they're not following the law. They're not following the law, but they kept dropping the case. Yeah. So
were they all in cahoots or something?
It's a small town in Georgia. Everybody knows each other, I'm sure. And they're like, we just don't want to get these people in trouble. They're facing enough hardship. I don't know, but I imagine, it would be like the size of maybe the town of Income that's close by us, right? Everybody knows everybody in Income.
I think of like Malad, like everyone knows everyone.
Right. And you don't want to get somebody who's already down and out and sick. I think it's kind of that. So Mr. Marsh, didn't have a legal license to operate. It had elapsed. He never renewed it, but his son took over the business. But his son didn't probably know to renew it. He figured dad had all the paperwork in order and he's just doing his thing while inhaling all of this mercury. Oh, it was just a terrible story all the way around. So nor was Brent, the son, a licensed funeral director, which you have to be in order to cremate, nor was he licensed to cremate, nor was he wasn't licensed for anything. Like, bodies are just coming in every day. This guy's losing his marbles because it is a fault of their own. They should have had everything properly working and it wasn't, but he doesn't know what he doesn't know. So he's just doing his thing and his brain is being taken over by toxic vapor. Oh God. So at first, I was researching this. I was really ticked off at Brent. I'm like, what are you doing? And then as we go deeper into this, like, this poor kid, he gave up his whole future to help out of his parents. And then he lost it, So from 1996 until the scandal broke in 2002, at least 2 separate complaints were made against Brent Marsh and Tri-State Crematory, alleging improper handling of bodies. But the complaints were given to the sheriff's department and they failed to act. So the sheriff is incompetent as all get out in this town. Okay. He was released from jail on August 27th, 2002 on a $159,000 bond. So they had to come up with a chunk of change on that. What is it, 10% usually?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always 10%.
Yep. So on August 28th, 2003, so a year later, the grand jury indicted him on 787 felony charges, including 439 counts of theft, 179 counts of abuse of a corpse, 122 counts of burial service fraud, and 47 counts of making false statements because he's signing these documents. Okay. On August 27th, 2004, so a year later, attorneys in Rome, Georgia announced an $80 million settlement from a federal class action suit against Marsh and the estate of his late father. So his dad had died by then. Surely is the stress.
Well, and I also wonder how much of his was mercury too.
Oh, I think a lot of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If they weren't maintaining that system the way they should have been. Yeah. Facing hundreds of charges, Marsh was probably aware that he'd spend the rest of his life behind bars if he took the case to trial. His attorney's probably going, no, you don't want to go to trial. Yeah, no. So they worked out a plea arrangement with the court, and in August 2022, he was sentenced to 12 years in a Georgia prison. He was also sentenced to 75 years of probation. So
wait, 2022?
Yeah, so from 2020,
you're saying 18 years later.
I must have written that wrong. Pardon me. It must have been.
Maybe you did take him.
2012.
Okay, I was like, what? I mean,
there was several years that this went back and forth, and his mental stuff was being. It must have been 2012, and I must have typed that wrong. I'm sorry. He was sentenced to 12 years in Georgia prison. He was sentenced to 75 years of probation, and he had to pay $20,000 in fines. And it said that he really did cremate over 1,000 bodies that came through the crematorium. So that's 1,000 bodies that potentially were poisoning him. He was released from prison in 2016 because he was a model prisoner. He earned a degree in theology, and he's trying really hard to give back to the community by being a preacher. I know. It's like, where do you sit on with this?
Like, that's such a different scenario, because it's like you have a young man who gave up everything. I mean, and I understand, especially when you're raised in the generations we were, you go home, you take care of your family, and you do what you got to do. I think, starting with my generation and the younger ones, it's kind of break that mold of you do anything regardless of how even messed up your parents are. You know, you just do it. But it's really sad to know that he gave up his whole life, his whole career. He could have gone so far in life. Had no idea what he was doing.
Ended up a football coach somewhere, you know,
Or an NFL player.
He could have ended up in NFL. Who knows? He was very good. He was very good in track. He probably would have ended up somewhere in sports doing great things and coaching kids and being a wonderful guy. Goes home, helps his dad, gets poisoned, loses it. From all accounts, like I was looking at interviews with him, he's genuinely so remorseful. He can't believe it happened, but he's being treated for the mercury poisoning. So now he's understanding that what he did was, wow, there was like this whole hazy period of several years of my life. I don't know anything that happened. Yeah.
That is so horribly sad.
Isn't it?
Because it's like not having the intention like others that do these kind of things. And it's just a weird, and I don't understand it. But this one, it was like, no, he was being poisoned.
Yep.
And losing his
money. So it was his dad. But probably to that extent, because the records seemed to be on par. But probably when his dad retired because of his health, Brent didn't know to maintain the equipment. He probably didn't know to have it inspected. He wasn't thinking about anything.
He probably knew to put, you know, I mean, I'm sorry to say it this way, guys, but put the body in there, do its thing, pull the body out.
Put the body in, take the ashes out. And I can't even imagine. So our crematoriums now, the ones that I've inspected anyway, they're really, 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 you have testing done on the equipment every single year. They have documents that show you that they've had it tested. I used to be there to watch the guys that were testing to make sure everything was right. I mean, it's just so like very, very regulated. Yeah, we have a country of over-regulation in many respects, but that's not one of them.
And it's like really sad. I mean, because you look at all these situations, especially in the situation that we're dealing with in our own community, and dealing with what I've dealt with in the last week, that now my family member wants to be there to make sure that it is that person going in. And that's like really, I think, traumatic to me that's where we've got because of some of these funeral homes that do really sick things, that now it gives these families like a fear of like, am I going to get my, family's bodies back? Like it, and then him, it's not like these other situations that they're really messed up. He was just losing his mind. He's going cuckoo.
Yeah, no fault kind of fault of his own, he didn't have the proper training, the licensing, the experience, and he's just trying to help out his parents. He didn't know better.
Yeah. He probably didn't know. Like, but I'll be honest with you. I didn't know that you had to have like certain certificates and regulations to be a funeral home person.
Yeah. There's a lot of training involved, and where the hell was the licensing and the regulatory agencies for doing their inspections? Because I had to inspect every single crematorium every year. And if I found a problem of any kind, I stepped it up to maybe every 3 months.
And that's fair.
Yeah. So where's Georgia? Where's the regulators out there going?
It seems like he was just nestled in that little corner and was forgotten about.
And what the heck with the sheriff?
That's like
not the lousiest sheriff's department you've heard of.
It makes me really wonder if the sheriff wasn't in on taking some of the money.
I don't know. Or just lazy.
Yeah. But I guess I look at it, unless they had like a wide property around them, that there was really nobody around them.
If you Google this on like Google Maps and put up Tri-State Crematory, like the property, you'll see that it's out there. It's out there. And
so then that kind of makes sense.
It's a big chunk of land. I don't know how many acres, but there seemed to be a lot that the family
What was it? Tri-City
Crematory, Noble, Georgia. And then you'll see it. It was a pretty good sized chunk of land. And then there's this dirt road that was off to the edge. Then I think that's the road that the propane driver was taken. So,
Like, it's just crazy to me.
yeah.
Like, how do you, like,
So you can't, I mean, you can find fault and then you can find empathy for him as well. And,
yes.
you know, the families, there were a lot of angry families, but when you look at the tone of the newspaper articles written over a period of during his prison sentence and everything else, a lot of people wanted to put it behind them because they realized that what happened to him was a terrible thing. And everybody was trying to put it kind of behind them and let's move forward as a community. And he was now trying to pay it back by doing really good things for the community. So,
See, and I will tell you, I have absolutely more respect for people who can recognize, like, hey, I messed up. And do I believe that there is certain things that are unforgivable? Yes, hands down. I don't care how much, whatever you've done. But in situations like this, he's recognizing he's remorseful and he is trying to make sure that he gives back.
right.
And that says a lot about a person to me.
Yeah. So I wish him and the community well. I hope that people do
Yeah.
when they get past this and that this man ends up living a better life because he's being so remorseful says a lot about him.
Yes.
So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's the story, guys.
That was a crazy one tonight. Like, I did not think we were going to go that way with it.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us, and we will catch you next week with another story.
Thanks, guys.